My name is Jessica Mayorga, and I'm going to be talking about the works Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston and House of Spirits by Isabel Allende. So it's important to really recognize these issues and discuss them with people, with the oppression that women go through on a daily basis and the sexism that they experience, not just from strangers but from their own families, their own cultures, and their own relatives, etc. Many authors draw back on personal experiences and talk about those issues, which I think is really great for us to really connect with that author and with that book that we're studying. I have gone through many experiences where I have dealt with sexism and oppression by many of my family members, and my, Hispanic culture. Machismo is really embedded in our culture and has been for a long time, and really affects me in ways that I hadn't realized before reading any of these books, which is why I kind of resonate with them and why I chose them for this specific issue that I talk about. Um, I think that uh, I think that it's important for us to really see the issues that women go through, because it's normal, it's become normalized in our society, not just in our society but in many different societies and many different countries, cultures deal with this type of stuff. House of Spirits, it's Hispanic culture, and Woman Warrior, it's Chinese culture. Many different cultures don't like women just for being women, and I think that's an issue that it needs to be more heard of and more talked about on a daily basis, because we deal with a lot of things that people don't know about or aren't aware about. So that's why I'm here today, to talk about these things and in these novels that I thought were really important. So for my thesis, I said, in The House of Spirits by Isabel Allende and Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston, both novels demonstrate how men think women live for their approval while women go against that ideal. And I think both of these novels have really strong characters, female characters, that empower women and really show what it means to be independent and think for yourself. So for the first book, I want to start off with House of Spirits. It's my book of translation that I chose. And the extract that I decided to go with this is where Transito Soto is talking to Esteban about how whores and prostitutes are the worst kind of women in the world, not just because they do what they do, but because they seek men for security when really they should be afraid of men. She's talking about her whorehouse, Christopher Columbus, and her workers. Women in the profession tend to think that they really do need a man to feel secure and to feel safe, but really, like, men are scary, and they should be afraid of men for what they do. Pimps tend to abuse their workers, like the women that work for them, while they're out and about, with their gold jewelry and like their flashy new outfits, while women are treated like trash just because they're women and like they're sex workers. She also goes on to say that she will never find herself supporting someone else. I think this is really important to recognize, because Transito Soto, she does what she does. She's a prostitute, she's a sex worker, and yet she is really independent. She doesn't need anyone. She's this big character, I think, that Allende made to empower women and to really just emphasize that women need to be more independent in our culture, and that women need to think for themselves, not for anyone else, or live for themselves, not for anyone else, not for men especially. That and we should praise sex workers more for what they actually do. I think that's really important, that it's really important that I I saw that in her novel, that she made Transita Soto a sex worker, you know, thinking that people are gonna bash on her and say all these, criticize her for being a sex worker, when I think they should be praised for what they do. And I think they shouldn't be at the bottom barrel of society. I think they should be at the top, because they have this level of confidence that nobody else has. And, you know, they're really independent, and I think that's really great. And I think Transita Soto is a perfect example for that. And she's like a strong female character in the novel, even though, you know, Allende has many strong female characters in her book, which I think is also great. But she says that, and I think it's important that, you know, Allende decided to put this in the novel because of the way people view sex workers, especially female sex workers. You know, their theme, like, they call them whores, they call them sluts, they call them hoes. That's not the case. You know, they do it because they want to do it, and they can do whatever it is that they want with their bodies. They don't need men to tell them what to do with their bodies, and they certainly don't need men for their approvals of their bodies. Another thing that I saw that was interesting was that many people believe that they do it for male validation, when in reality people don't realize that women can do whatever it is that they want to do with their bodies. They don't need a man to make them feel secure. They don't need a man to make them feel beautiful. They don't need a man to feel safe. They need that security within themselves. They need to find that security within themselves. And I think that's what Allende was trying to say with that, is that women need to start realizing that they don't need men for that type of stuff, because Allende herself was a really independent woman, I think so. And I think that's what she's trying to get across with this extract. She also goes on to say that I think Transita Soto was probably one of the most interesting ones that rebelled against machismo culture in such a way that we wouldn't have expected her to, especially in her society. So for Woman Warrior, the extract that I chose was the part where Maxine Uncles rejects girls and leaves them behind because they're girls, and he doesn't want to associate with girls like that. And I think it's important that we realize that damages women's identities, and their insecurities go up really bad, especially if that starts from such a young age. And that, you know, she went to college, and when she went to college and she came back, she wished that she was a boy so that her parents could praise her for all of her approval, because they praise the guys, her brothers, they praise all of her brothers, but yet they don't praise her for doing the same exact thing, like getting good grades in school, or cleaning around the house, or picking up after herself, or cooking dinner. Like, her brothers don't do that, and that really just puts a strain on her and her identity and her confidence. And also, she rebelled against those ideals once she came back from college. You know, she said, you know what, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna cook, I'm not gonna clean. And her mother decided to call her a bad girl. And she says that a bad girl is almost like a boy, because a bad girl doesn't cook, doesn't clean, doesn't do that, you know? And I think instead of telling her that, her parents should realize that they could do whatever it is that they want, you know? Cooking and cleaning, that's a basic survival need for humans. It shouldn't have to be, you know, women clean and cook while men go out and fight. No, women and men can do the same exact things. Obviously, one of them is stronger, but they can do the same exact things, and they should be treated equally. And I think that's what Kingston wanted to show in the novel, is how sexist the culture is in Chinese culture. And that goes back to, like, my thesis statement, because men think that women live for their approval when they don't. You know, many women decide to go against that ideal, which I think is great, because the faster that we diminish those ideals in our society, the faster that we progress as a society. She also points a good picture of how men think, how her mother thought that getting good grades and getting into college was going to benefit Max or Kingston's husband's future instead of her own future. You know, her mother should have been praising her, telling her, you know, you should do this for your career, you should do this for your future instead of your husband's future. And instead she told her that it was because of her husband, that she should do this for her husband. So she's telling her she should live for men's approval when that's not the case. You know, Maxine or Kingston went against that ideal and said, no, I'm not going to do this. And she decided to not cook and clean and break dishes. Whenever she would clean dishes, she would crack an egg or like burn something whenever she would cook so that men could do the work that she's doing. So I think it's really important that we take a look at these novels and realize that they're teaching us to go against those ideals as women, to further progress our society and not need men's approval for anything in our lives. Men shouldn't think that we live from them for their wants and needs. They should think that we coexist with them. Thank you. That's my presentation.